always loved camping alone. There was something about the solitude, the quiet, the feeling of being completely removed from the world that calmed me. I had done it a dozen times before without issue. But last fall, something happened that changed how I look at the woods forever. It was late October, the air crisp and clean, the kind of weather that makes your breath come out in little white puffs. I drove out to a state forest I had never been to before, a little over 2 hours from my apartment. It wasn't a well-known park, but I liked that, for it to be alone. I arrived in the early afternoon, parked at a small trailhead, and hiked in about 3 miles before finding the perfect spot, a little clearing near a stream, surrounded by tall pines. I set up my tent, gathered firewood, and got everything ready before dark. The first night was uneventful. Sat by the fire, ate my simple meal, and listened to the distant sounds of the forest. The occasional hoot of an owl, the rustling of small animals in the underbrush. It was peaceful. When I turned in for the night, I slept soundly, undisturbed. The next day I explored a bit, following the stream deeper into the woods. I took my time, snapping photos, enjoying the quiet. By the time I made it back to camp in the late afternoon, the light was already beginning to fade. That's when I noticed something strange. My fire pit had been disturbed. Not in a big way, but the rocks I had arranged in a neat circle the night before were slightly out of place. My first thought was an animal, maybe a raccoon looking for food, but nothing was missing. My bag of food was untouched, my gear still exactly where I left it. It put me on edge, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I built the fire back up and settled in for the night. That's when I started hearing things. At first it was just subtle sounds, the kind you can explain away. The snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves in the breeze. But as the hours passed, the noises became more distinct. Footsteps, not the scurrying of a small animal, but slow, deliberate steps in the darkness beyond the firelight. I called out, more to reassure myself than anything. Hello? Nothing. The steps stopped. The woods were silent. My heart pounded in my chest, and I strained to hear anything over the crackle of the fire. After a long moment, I convinced myself it was just my imagination. I was alone. I had to be. I forced myself to relax and eventually turned in for the night. Sleep didn't come easy, but exhaustion won out. Then, sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up suddenly. A sound. Something close. Right outside my tent. I held my breath listening. There was no mistaking it now. Someone was out there, standing just feet away. I could hear their breathing, slow and steady. I reached for my flashlight with trembling fingers and clicked it on. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the thin fabric of the tent. For a split second I saw it, a shadow just beyond the nylon wall, tall and motionless. Then in an instant, it was gone. I burst out of my sleeping bag, my heart hammering. I unzipped the tent door just enough to peer out, my flashlight scanning the trees. Nothing. The woods were still, but I knew what I heard, what I saw. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. By dawn, I had convinced myself to pack up and get out of there. Maybe it was just some curious hiker, maybe a hunter passing through. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. As I hiked back to my car, I felt watched. Every now and then I would stop and listen. Sure, I heard movement behind me, but every time I turned, there was nothing there. When I finally reached my car, I tossed my gear in the trunk, locked the doors, and sat there for a long moment, trying to calm down. My fingers were still shaking as I started the engine. As I pulled onto the narrow dirt road leading back to the highway, I stole one last glance in my rearview mirror, and that's when I saw it. Standing at the tree line, half hidden in the shadows, was a figure. Tall, still, watching me. I didn't wait to get a better look. I floored it, tearing down the road, not daring to look back again. I haven't gone camping alone since. I grew up in Chicago, where the closest thing to nature was a park with a few trees and some squirrels bold enough to steal your lunch. But I like trying new things, pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So when I read about a beginner-friendly camping spot in the Shawnee National Forest, I figured, why not? Sure, I wasn't big on doing things alone, but I wanted to prove to myself that I could. Before going, I'd read a few stories online about people getting assaulted in the woods, hikers going missing, strange encounters, all that creepy survivalist forum stuff. But I figured it was just paranoia. That kind of thing didn't happen to people like me. I was from Chicago. I'd walked home at 2 a.m. past people twice my size staring me down, and I was fine. Some trees and a couple of deer weren't going to scare me. The plan was simple. Hike in a couple of miles, set up camp, and spend the night under the stars. I had all the gear, a brand new tent, a survival knife, even a compass I barely knew how to use. Everything was supposed to be easy, but I went too deep. The trail was clear at first, but at some point, I must have veered off without realizing it. The trees got denser, the light dimmer. I checked my phone, no service. The compass needle spun in my palm, but I had no idea how to read it. Apparently, binge-watching YouTube tutorials doesn't translate to real-world skills. Who knew? Then I noticed the markings. Carved into the tree trunks were strange symbols, flashes, circles, and some that almost looked like letters, but weren't in any language I recognized. Some were fresh, the bark still raw and oozing, while others were weathered. I told myself it was nothing. Some hiker's weird hobby, but my stomach twisted in a way I couldn't shake. Should have turned back right then. I walked for another half hour, thinking I'd hit the road eventually, but every direction looked the same. Endless trees, no signs, no trail. Just when I was starting to panic, I saw them. Two people, standing a little too still among the trees. A man and a woman, both dressed in dark, worn-out clothes. Their faces were partially shadowed, but I could see enough. They were watching me. Relief washed over me at first. "Hey," I called. "I think I got turned around. Can you help me find the road?" No response. I took a cautious step forward. "I don't mean to bother you, I just..." The woman shook her head, slow and deliberate. The man turned slightly, revealing something in his hand, a knife. Not raised, not threatening, just there. I felt cold all over. Something about them, about the way they stood, unmoving, unspeaking, sent a deep primal fear through me. My instinct screamed, "Run." So I did. I bolted in the opposite direction, crashing through the brush, branches whipping against my arms and face. I didn't care which way I was going, just away. Behind me, footsteps. Not running, not chasing, but following, keeping pace. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My breath came in sharp gasps, my legs burned, my heart pounded in my ears. I tripped on something, a root, a rock, my own panic, and hit the ground hard. For a second, I just lay there, stunned. And then, absurdly, a thought popped into my head. Of course I fall while being chased. Classic horror movie move. I would have laughed if I wasn't about to die. Funny how your brain does that. Throws out dumb jokes even when you're living a nightmare. I scrambled up, ignoring the sharp sting in my knee, and kept running. Then, in the distance, cars. the faint hum of engines, tires against pavement, the road. I ran harder, lungs on fire, till the trees thinned and the asphalt came into view. And there, like a damn miracle, was my car. I scrambled for my keys, practically throwing myself inside, my stomach cramping, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped them. I looked back expecting to see them chasing, but there was no one, just creepy dark woods. As I drove away, I thought, all that planning and gear was for nothing. I didn't even get to camp that night. I didn't stop driving until I saw city lights. Maybe it was just some backwoods locals messing with the lost city kid. Maybe they meant no harm. Maybe I was never supposed to leave those woods at all. I used to think there was nothing more unsettling than walking alone at night in the city, when every shadow could be hiding someone, and you had to keep your head on a swivel. But at least in an alley, you know where the danger might come from. There are walls, corners, streetlights. The rules make sense. Out there in the woods, there were no walls, no lights, no rules. Just miles and miles of empty blackness, where anything, anyone, could be watching. And I'd rather take my chances with the alleys. At least there, I knew what kind of monsters to expect.